Lightsabers hum, they light up the night. Pete and Nick keep the galaxy bright. From Tatooine Sands to indoor trees, they're bringing the news with galactic ease. ATGLive, we're blasting away, talking Star Wars every Thursday. Interviews, opinions, and all the lore. Hop on the Falcon, they're opening the door. From Vader's breath to Grogu's charms, theories and chats, they keep us disarmed. Around the galaxy tonight, Chris and Kelsey keeping it tight. They're breaking news like a Death Star blast, taking your calls and reading your chats. The greatest guests and what you need to know. Pete and Nick lead the Star Wars show. ATGLive, we're blasting away, talking Star Wars every Thursday. Interviews, opinions, and all the lore. Hop on the Falcon, they're opening the door.
We're home. Well, welcome to ATGLive, your Thursday night home for all things Star Wars. I'm one of your hosts, Pete Fletzer, and I'm joined by this guy, Nick Mielke. Nick, what is up, my friend?
It's Thursday. It has been a very full week. It is about to be a much more also equally full weekend. I don't know. It all runs one into another, as you're well aware. So what better beacon to have in the middle of all this busyness than a Thursday night hanging out with some of my favorite people, doing a toast, talking about Star Wars, talking to fun people. This is the coaxium that's going to launch me right into my weekend.
The bro axiom, that was
the bro axiom, if you will.
Yes, and unfortunately Chris isn't with us tonight, but that's okay. We'll still play his commercials because you got to buy his stuff. Go to broaxiumoutpost.com. I'm going to plug that all the time. I'm going to start wearing shirts. I might buy a billboard on like the Parkway. I'm not going to do that. It's way too much money. I love Chris, but I got to draw the line somewhere. Well, Nick, tell us about our show tonight. What do we got coming up tonight?
We have a fantastic show tonight. We are going to get to, as we have taken on over the last several weeks, our Around the Galaxy news game segment in honor of our friends at the now recently departed Around the Horn. We're going to be doing that. But we are also going to spend a little bit of time talking with a good friend of ours who has been involved with everything from Podathon to Road to Rebellion just a couple of weeks ago. Our good friend, Mr. David Jesse from Tatooine Sons, is going to be here. And I'm excited to chat with him. And we're going to see what else we get into. We've got folks in the live chat. We want y'all to be involved. So send us your messages. We're going to put them up on screen. The whole deal.
We might even get back to phone calls tonight. It all depends.
We might get, Eric, I know you're watching.
Yeah, I know.
No promises. It's like when I tell my kids we might do something on the weekend and realize that was the mistake of saying we might do it instead of just waiting until we did it. But yeah, you never know what might happen.
Yeah, there's nothing better than when my son says, "You said we were going to go to Dick's Sporting Goods this weekend." And I'm like, I said we might. He's like,
exactly.
No, you lied to me. And I'm like, then I feel like I'm just a horrible person.
As my parents called it, I had selective hearing. I only heard the parts I wanted to hear.
Exactly. Well, speaking of buying stuff, you can go to our website. How'd you like that? It was a nice, smooth transition. Yeah. And at our website at the sswnetwork.com, real easy to find all our stuff. You can go to our merch store. We're sort of reviving that. We got some new stuff, some conversations. Nick and I have been coming up with some ideas for shirts and stickers and stuff. You can also join our Patreon program. We just had a new patron join us last week. Thank you very much, Andrew. And for as little as $3 a month, you're going to get early access to our Around the Galaxy interview shows. You're going to get swag. You're going to get to hang out with some of the coolest people in some of the best community that's out there, I think, for sure. So also on our socials, you can find us everywhere at the SSW Network on Twitter.
Would you say maybe, Pete, we have friends everywhere? Is that how we would say that?
I do like that. Yeah. Yes, I have friends everywhere. That's going to be... I was going to say that's going to be like the thing at the next Star Wars celebration, but you do have friends everywhere at Star Wars celebration.
That's right. We have weird space friends everywhere too. So
a shirt, by the way, available at shop today.
How we did that.
We're getting good at this, Nick. We're like pros now.
It's only taken us 3 years.
Any of the socials, you'll at the SSW Network, and you'll find us, and you'll also find Nick at Will's Pod and me at ATG Cast and all that stuff. So,
actually, fun fact: if we want to
yes.
go be all technical about it, you won't find me at Will's Pod.
Oh, that's right.
My Twitter does not exist. I blew it up because Elon can go pound sand, and honestly, Twitter had been broken, and I had stuck around a lot longer than I should have. But it got to the point where I didn't even see the people I was following in the following tab, like just a bunch of nonsense, and it wasn't worth it, and I didn't need it, so I blew it up. I had that one for a long time, had a lot of followers, but I didn't care because it wasn't helpful, and there's better ways to spend my time and my energy, both in Star Wars and in general. So sorry.
And then here I am still on Twitter so that I can, broadcast our show afterwards. That's right. I'll take it for the team.
That's right. You're taking one for the team.
I know.
Well, Pete, we do want people to be involved with the show, whether it is on Twitter talking to you, whether it's on any of the other socials, as you mentioned. But we also have some other interactive ways. We have our voicemail line. You can see right here above my dumb head, 504-321-1501. Call that anytime, day or night, when you have a Star Wars thought, whatever it might be. Call, leave us a message. We'll play it on the show. We'll talk about it. Ask us a question, float a theory. Whatever it is, I know you have Star Wars thoughts. Some of you blurt them out in front of the liquor store by your kid's karate dojo. And then you call us and tell us about that too, which is also fun. So call and leave a message, be a part of the chat. And sometimes we do take we take live calls on the show. Sometimes, Eric, I know you're here, you're hanging out. If we get to you, we hope to see you, but no promises. We'll see how it goes. But we also know that we want to be involved with you. We want you guys to connect and be a part of the conversation. So we try to provide a bunch of different ways to do that.
And speaking of conversation, we ran a 7-part Road to Rebellion, which was our after show for Andor, and our last episode just dropped earlier this week. Go check it out. We took calls and questions from you and let you sort of drive the show. And that was a lot of fun. The week before, we had Stephen Kent talking about the politics of Andor. The week before that, our guest tonight, David Jesse. We also had Screen Crush and we Colton Ogburn from Screen Crush, and we also had, of course, one of our favorite people, Becca Benjamin, on. Then the three of them sort of we let them talk. We asked a Star Andor question, and we were entertained, which was great. And you will be too. Plus, the first 4 episodes are recaps of the show, so go check that out. It's, Nick, it's still like the most popular Star Wars conversation is Andor theories and this and that. Yep. There's a lot of stuff going on out there. So
people are talking about Andor, and I think they will continue for a good long time to come, and that is very well deserved.
I think so too. Yeah. Yep.
Outstanding.
Yeah.
Well, we also have to, we already mentioned, we saw in the chat, Chris is in the chat hanging out. Chris does not feel well tonight, so he's not going to be able to join us. But we, as we discovered a couple weeks ago, would not be able to get all the things done properly without our good friend and producer, Kelsey Puckett. Kelsey, how are you tonight?
I'm doing all right. How are you guys?
We're better.
Great.
We're better now that we're all hanging out. And
I miss you very much.
Well, we miss you too.
Always miss you.
It's the least we know. We get that Thursday, right? We get that.
It's always nice to talk Star Wars with your buddies every Thursday. So it's just like having that routine. It's perfect.
Well, it's interesting you say that because somebody just posted probably on Twitter or one of the social media places. Hey, John Bezaleski saying hi to Kelsey. Somebody was like, "Is this that lull when nobody talks about Star Wars?" And I was like,
nope.
No, we
that
will
doesn't
talk about
exist.
Star Wars every week, even if we have to make stuff up. So
I'm determined there's going to come a day when there's no one actually watching or listening to this, and it's still just you and I sitting here talking about Star Wars, pretending like people are listening, like you give your kids the video, like you give your kids the video game controller.
Happen. I feel like we're just like such diehards. Like I feel like it's always going to be a part of us. So there's no way.
Right. It's like when you give your kid a video game controller and it's not plugged in. You're like, Sure, buddy, you're playing. Have fun. We're just going to keep going.
Great.
You're doing great, pal.
Well, Nick, it's a new month, which means we have a new toast this month.
It is a new month. It is a new toast. I'm not going to recap them. I feel like every week I end up recapping every single month.
And it takes longer and longer because we're having more and more months.
Because we're halfway through the year now. So
keep just misfiring with our little videos. It's like, oh no.
So 6 months into the year, it is the month of June. And I believe our friend Matt Harrington, who is in the chat, may have been one of those who contributed to the fact that the month of June is what we are calling June or so. That is going to be our toast for the month.
Nice.
Long story short, I'm going to put this June or so. This is a 6-inch figure, by the way, so it's a little bit more of a swallowing hazard here. I'm going to drop my figure in my beer. We raise a toast, and we're going to play a video clip. We have put together another inspired video clip for this month's toast.
Nice.
And the goal is to finish your beer before the video clip ends. So Pete's got a Death Trooper that's going.
Yeah, it's just all I could find. So I got a
I'm
Death
not
Trooper
racing
helmet.
you. I kept like just gagging on all of my toys is the worst. So
no, it wasn't the worst. So
yeah.
as we get ready, and Pete's going to get our video ready to go. But as we raise our toast this evening, it is the beginning of June. It is the beginning of Pride Month, and I want to toast to all of our friends in the LGBTQ community. This is a safe space for you. We are your friends. We are your allies. This has always been a show where Star Wars is for everyone. This show is for everyone. So we are raising our toast for this first night of June Ursay and wishing everybody happy Pride Month.
There we go.
Congratulations. You are being toasted. Please do not resist.
I got close.
We got
enough.
him.
I still haven't been able to do it. It's just one of those things I can't do for some reason.
We say it every.
Nick has like a stupid ability to chug, and it's just like it's the frat boy in him that's gonna beat us every time.
The frat boy that never
Yeah.
was still managed to have that one skill.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. There's a guy that you can find on TikTok and you can find on some other places. I can't remember his name or what his handle is. But he's the guy, I think he's actually hired by Garage Beer, which I think is the same company that the Kelsey brothers are invested in.
Yep.
And he stands in football game parking lots during football season with a card table and a thing of a beer, and he offers chug challenges, and he'll be like $20. You pay $20, and if you beat him, he gives you like $100. I've never seen somebody drink a beer this fast in my life. It's one swallow. Like, he unhinges his throat. It doesn't make sense.
Nick,
And he probably makes.
I would like put you up against him. Like, I feel like we gotta go out in like just in
Watching
the wild.
those videos.
Like,
I'm gonna send you one later.
And let's do it.
Producer Kelsey, your job is to get him on for a toast sometimes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna send you a video later, and you're gonna retract that. Put me up against him because there's not a chance in hell.
No,
No
it just
way.
like you have like insane chugging ability. Like I thought when I first came on this show, like I thought I was pretty good at this, and now I've just been like shamed every week. So
Well,
like
I guess the reality is I'm just glad my mom doesn't watch this show to know how I've misspent most of my life.
There you go. Well,
The
hey,
skills
we
that I have.
have a ton of stuff to get to tonight. We had a bunch of news stories. We have our good friend David Jesse joining us. So why don't we take our first break for the night, and then when we come back, we're going to talk with David Jesse about what makes a Star Wars a Star Wars. So we'll be back in just a minute with more ATG Live.
He has Star Wars figures, by the way.
Yes.
Not in that commercial. We transitioned to another one, but we have to say it because we say it every week.
Yes.
Buy your toys from Bro Axiom Collectibles. Buy it from Chris. Use the code. It's a whole thing. Like, support local business, independent business. You're gonna buy this stuff anyhow. Pete coined the phrase. You're gonna buy it anyhow.
Yep.
Buy it from Chris.
Just
That
do it.
is
'Cause
literally
he throws
the
in
only way
comic
to go.
books, and if he throws in comic books, because I just placed ordered a couple of weeks ago for the Rexes. If there's comic books in there, I'm giving them away here on the show.
You're gonna have something to start your chimney on your grill with. Exactly.
Oh man. All right.
Now we're going to get in trouble. Well, Pete, we are excited to bring back a good friend of the show. David Jesse is the creator and proud father of Tatooine Sons, a pop culture podcast that explores Star Wars and other fan favorite franchises as the modern myths of our time. Each week, David teams up with his sons, Nate and Sam, to bring thoughtful, entertaining discussions to listeners across the galaxy. They're the only Star Wars podcast to both name a canon character and receive a personal endorsement from Rian Johnson. Not at all jealous about that. Please welcome back to the show our good friend, Mr. David Jesse.
There he is, David
What's
Jesse.
up, guys? We're going to milk that Turbis the Porg thing and Rian Johnson thing till the day we die.
As well you should.
Well, yeah, you absolutely should. I mean, this is not the time or place for the story again, but my goodness,
No.
it's so cool. It is so cool. I just, I mean, and then you have him on video.
We have him on video saying the endorsement.
So it's not just like we have a couple things by I can't think of his name. Mark, the voice guy who does all the books. Mark Thompson.
Mark Thompson. Yeah.
Doing a couple intros for the show, but it's not the real Thrawn. It's Mark. No,
right,
not that Mark's.
right.
I mean, he's close, but he's not it. So
it's pretty cool. That's a pretty cool voiceover, though.
Oh yeah, it's kind of one of my favorite things. So David, Tatooine Sons is back in business. Tell people a little bit about Tatooine Sons who may or may not have heard of it.
Yeah, it's a dad and two sons. We started this thing almost 8 years ago. Sam and Nate were 16 and 12 when we started. Now they're 24 and will be 20 in just a couple months.
Wow.
And so they've grown up talking Star Wars. And a few years back, we sort of pivoted to a full pop culture conversation and have been having a lot of fun with that over the last several years. And then we took a little bit of a hiatus starting in the fall of the year as Sam was finishing school or he had already finished. He was like moving into his full-time job. Nathan was getting ready to start college and then tried to figure out would we cancel the show? Would we like stop it because they had grown up, or were we going to keep doing it? And we decided not only would we keep doing it, but we'd pivot back to talking pretty much Star Wars exclusives. So that's we started that back up in May and a little bit different format, but it's a lot of fun. We're having a great time.
You got to keep it going until you get to Tatooine Grandsons.
I know. Yeah. that is sort of like, that always has been the dream, is like to have an episode where I've got all like 3 generations on the show. That'd be pretty cool. That'd really be a good show. So.
That would be awesome. So David, what was your first Star Wars memory and what made it instantly feel different from anything else you'd seen?
It's weird. There's 3 memories I think of when I think of Star Wars, because it came out when I was 2 years old, right? So didn't see it in the theaters in 77. I remember it being on loop on HBO when I was like 4 or 5. And what that was my initial exposure to Star Wars, was seeing it like that, and just fascinated by this. So I remember being bored to death through anything on Tatooine, like we all are, if we're honest. And then
up to the cantina. That's when it.
Once Han shows up, I remember when Han, because he did shoot first.
Yes.
When he did, I remember distinctly wondering, is he a good guy or a bad guy up until the very end of the movie. Right. And when he shows back up to save Luke at the Death Star, I was like relieved and excited. And because he was truly a good guy. So that's sort of an early memory. Playing action figures in the backyard with Marvin and Brandy and Jamie, my 3 friends that were on the cul-de-sac with us. We did that for years. And then I remember distinctly a Sunday afternoon when one of those guys showed up at the house and said that their mom was taking them all to go see Return of the Jedi and wanted to know if I could come. and I had a commitment that night with my family, and I couldn't go. And I did not see a Star Wars in the theaters until the special editions.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, that's
great.
my earliest Star Wars memories.
Wow.
It's fantastic. So as we're talking tonight, we're talking about what makes a Star Wars, and we're going to kind of dig into that from a couple of different angles. So the first question I want to ask you is, if you had to describe the Star Wars feel in one word, what would that word be and why?
It's so hard because I think that the initial word that always comes to my mind is hope, but that's sort of overdone, right? I mean, everybody says that, and it's going all the way back to, I mean, it really became the word at the end of Rogue One when that hit the theaters and Leia says it. And I do think that that's, a word that describes it. But I would tell you that I feel the older I get, the more the word mythic really it sticks with me with Star Wars. There's something so big about that story, and it's why it's endured for almost 50 years. And it's, they're goofy old men like us on a Thursday night sitting around Star Wars every single week.
Yeah.
Because there's something bigger than just a sci-fi franchise or a fun movie or something like that. And that's the word I would use to describe it.
It's funny you say that again. When I was writing for Star Wars Galaxy magazine, I was asked to speak at some local sci-fi thing, and I did a whole presentation on the modern day myth. And I started my presentation by saying that Star Wars is not science fiction. And I remember, there were people that were literally like, "Oh, you're wrong. You're dead wrong." But I mean, this is why Star Trek comes and goes. And there's nothing in Star Trek, because I do love a lot of the Star Trek stuff. But it does kind of, it ebbs and flows, because it does have some of the elements, but Star Wars is all those elements.
It's not the same.
Yeah.
It's not the same.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting. And I love that you said that it kind of hit that way, because we've had these conversations before. We've had these conversations as different shows have come out throughout the Star Wars, certainly in the Disney Plus era. David, I've heard you guys talk about this a good bit. Our friend Dan Zier talks about this a lot on Coffee with Kenobi. The fact, and this is even more prescient in my mind recently, because my kids are all obsessed right now with ancient Egypt and the pharaohs and Joseph and all these stories. We watched the 10 Commandments the other week. I watched 10 Commandments growing up all the time as a kid.
Every Easter, right?
It was an epic movie. Yes, every Easter. And it was such an epic movie. And my dad, of all people who liked Westerns and Star Trek, he was like, we have to watch the 10 Commandments. But Star Wars has become, and I say this because there's so much of Egyptian mythology, my kids and the stuff, through the Thor and Loki movies, we've got Norse mythology. This is our modern American mythology that has interwoven itself into our culture. And we see it in so many ways, from people who, in one form or another, become actual adherents of some version of the Force as a guiding principle in their life. We have cons, we have celebration, we have Star Wars Day. Our baseball teams take on Star Wars special events like this mythology created by this guy from California. This story has become an actual mythology that has actually woven into the actual course of our lives. We get tattoos of it. It becomes this thing that is more than just, and people have Star Trek tattoos, like you said, Pete, but it's a different thing, and it holds in a different status, because when there's a news story, like we're going to get into later, about who's going to be in charge of Star Wars, it becomes front page news. It's not the same as if, they're making another season of Lower Decks. That's a different thing. So it's really fascinating. And I love that the word you chose is mythic, because it started out as a story influenced by myth and now has become a mythology all of its own.
Yeah. And, the other day, I think it was Monday, I was sitting in here in my office. I work from home. My office doubles as our podcast studio. It's nice now. I'm actually not in a 4x4 closet where I've been for the last 4 years. I had a son move out, so I get a room now for it. And I had a TV on, and there was some videos playing on a History Channel documentary from the time that Phantom Menace came out. I think it's called The Legacy Revealed. Came on, and it had, people talking about the mythology and how this ties in. And you know, it's stuff that we know, it's talked about like crazy and in the Star Wars world. But as I was watching it, I kept wondering, is that something that at this point in our world, in the timing that we're at, if we need more, we need more of this. There is a sense of right and wrong and good and evil. And there, you know, there's a reason to stand up against, you know, a tyranny and darkness. And we need to stand up against that. And so, you know, that's something that I think that people gravitate towards these stories in the Star Wars universe, because they help us. I mean, we used to open our podcast for years with saying there's a story written on our souls and that these myths speak to that story. And that's exactly what I feel like Star Wars does.
Yeah, no, it's true. I think that's when people, I used to ask the question, why does Star Wars survive? And it's because of that. It's so much deeper than just a handful of movies. But so as we look at sort of the question of what makes a Star Wars, though, because now we've seen different iterations, you know, as we've gone through Disney Plus, we've seen things that are, you know, you see something like Andor, which is, you know, is it fully Star Wars? What's it missing? Does it have everything? And you have things, all kinds of different types of stories. So in your opinion, what is sort of the essential elements of a Star Wars story that make it Star Wars?
And this is, as I answer this, I'm fully aware that 2 of the last 3 releases within Star Wars have blurred this line somewhat with it. But there really truly was, especially when you go back to the original trilogy, there was this clear delineation between who the good guys were and the bad guys were.
Right.
With it. And I think we get that in series like Andor.
Yeah.
We know who the good guys are. And even though we have guys like Luthen that are I think we talked about it when we were doing the Road to Rebellion show. They're terrorists, right? I think Colton said that.
Yep.
You made it that clear. They're terrorists and they're revolutionaries. But sometimes the cause requires you to take a stand in a violent manner. And I'm not trying, you know, saying that like lightly. I'm saying that that's the way that story, it plays out with it. I feel like when we got to the prequels, we saw that there were good guys and bad guys. There was light and there was dark. There was good, there was evil. But we saw that there was, and I love it in the prequels, specifically that era. We see this group that should be standing on the right side every single time, and they're corrupted by the institutionalization of the Jedi Order and their marriage toward the political system. And we see the Jedi falling, you know, in The Last Jedi, my favorite Star Wars movie, we see Luke talking about the hubris of the Jedi and be able to be corrupted with it. We see that falling apart with that. I struggled somewhat with the Acolyte because I struggled with who's the good guys and who's the bad guys. And really, is there this clear sense of right and wrong with it? And I think that that's one of the things that has always made Star Wars grab me. Is there really, you kind of know what side you're supposed to be rooting for with that.
Yeah. It's interesting too, because I've said this a bunch of times recently, especially as we've gotten into the Disney era of Star Wars, is in 1977, moviegoers, story receivers wanted and were more adjusted to simple stories. And I don't mean that to minimize it, but there's good guys, bad guys, and they were called rebels, but we didn't think of them as rebels as we think of rebels today. And it's interesting, the Star Wars storytelling has grown with us as a result, right? In that the reason Andor is so good is because it explores those areas that, I don't think in 1977 we wanted to think of, Captain Antilles as a potential, connected to a terrorist organization, right? We wanted him to be the guy who did what he had to do with the droids and blah, blah, blah. So I think that that's part of this really unique growth is that, it's like Clone Wars. When we look at the Clone Wars episodes, they evolved with their audience, right? They started out as 10-year-olds, and by the time it ended, they were older. The stories got more mature, and they
and Rebels was the same way. Absolutely.
Yes, for sure. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, and it was easier when we were kids. And I think that's the other thing that we've talked about too. And you hit on it just a little bit. Even for those of us that grew up with the original trilogy, we grew up with Star Wars and Star Wars grew up with us. It was really easy as a kid to tell the difference between the good guys and the bad guys, because the good guys were kind of this ragtag, run around, the cool ones. The bad guys all had clean, pristine armor. They all matched. It was big. It was scary. And then as we got older and we got things like DJ in The Last Jedi, and we get, these other characters, and he's going, yeah, guess what? Everybody's a bad guy because they're selling ships to the same people they're selling ships to.
Yep.
Because that's how life works for us in the real world. We have to grow up and we have to figure out how to make ethical choices, and we have to figure out who's a good guy and who's a bad guy. And where does that, for as much as I am not one who says there should be a gray Jedi, because I think we have dark side and we have light side, it also gives you that moment to pause to go, but that's where people come up with that, because you're going, what if you are a decently good guy, but we got a little bit of that in Visions. So I think that eternal struggle of light and dark, good and bad, good versus evil is a key crucial part of Star Wars, but we all get to engage with it at different levels in different ways. And I think it feeds into what we said earlier. It feeds into what makes this myth so endearing and lasting the way it does.
Well, and that's the beauty of where we're at in the production of Star Wars now, because it's not like we're going to have 3 movies, wait 10, 12, 15 years, 3 movies, wait 10, 12, 15 years. So those 3 movies don't have to just be all for 12-year-olds, as George Lucas said at the 40th anniversary of Star Wars panel in Orlando. It needed to be that way when it was just these trilogies coming out. It doesn't have to be that way now. And that's something that I've had to, over the last several years, come to grips with, that there can be stories like Andor, and there can be stories, as we talked about before, with the Acolyte and those types of things, because we get more of them now. I'm of the opinion that your cinematic universe should stay the big tent pole, full-on, family-driven, Star Wars is for 12-year-olds experience. And then I'm saying go to town on Disney Plus with Andor and with some Star Wars horror or whatever we need to do. Let us that have aged with it have content that tells a story to us today, so that we can continue to stay engaged. But let's be wise and realize that there should be stories like Skeleton Crew. There should be stories like Ahsoka to go alongside with an Andor, so that people at different stages of life, different maturity levels, and different preferences have the opportunity to engage in this universe.
Yeah, and I think that's the great thing about, Greg Iwinski, who's a friend of the show and a writer on the Young Jedi Adventures.
Jedi.
I mean, that is such a cool thing. I love that my son is a Star Wars, a Clone Wars kid. He's the Rex 5s and Cody guy. Like, that's his Star Wars, which is so amazing. And that's only a result of the fact that there's so much different things coming out. Because honestly, I didn't watch Clone Wars until he started watching it. And just because I was like, oh, it's a cartoon, I don't want, and I miss so much great stuff. but it's as you were just saying, it's like there's enough for everybody, and whatever gets you into the myth, that's great, right? So
yeah. I remember sitting there at when Mandalorian season 2 finale hit, and I'm sitting there with Sam and Nate, and so Nate I think was about 13, 14 years old, maybe 15. And we were sitting there watching that finale, and somebody showed up in an X-wing, and they were hooded, and they got out and they started just mowing down bad guys with a green lightsaber. And I'm sitting on that couch with him, 100% convinced, knowing it's Luke, and super excited to see Luke Skywalker return.
Yep.
And when it was revealed to be Luke, Nathan let out a disappointed sigh, because for him, he was convinced it was Ezra Bridger returning from the
Oh wow.
the unknown regions.
Yep.
Because Star Wars for him was Rebels.
Yeah.
And the ultimate Jedi, he'll argue to this day that the ultimate Jedi is Ezra Bridger. And a guy showing up with a green lightsaber to save the day had to be Ezra, and he was super disappointed with that. So I think that's
wild.
interesting how it's changed for all of us as we ingest and take in Star Wars in different eras.
Yeah. Wow.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Well, another thing that changes within all of us at different eras and stages of our life is humor. And Star Wars has that nothing, if not always, had a lot of funny stuff in it. What do you think the role of humor in Star Wars, the weird, does that keep it feeling like Star Wars? Because we had so much stuff early on with, you know, boring conversation anyway. I don't know. How are you? You know, all that kind of stuff, all the way up through Fly Casual. And then in the prequels, when we have a younger audience, we have, you know, Eopes farting and that kind of stuff. So talk a little bit about the role that you see, the crucial role of humor in Star Wars.
Yeah, humor makes perfect sense in context of what you were describing, especially with the prequels and Jar Jar and the Opie and that kind of thing. When you remember what George Lucas has said as he was making those movies, that Star Wars was for 12-year-olds. And if you're a 12-year-old kid watching The Phantom Menace and the Opie farts, that's great.
You're gonna laugh at it. Yeah,
that's great. Right? You know, C-3PO was funny in the original, and adults didn't like him and kids did. And it's the same thing with Jar Jar in the prequels. And there was I think Ryan was attempting to go down some of the path of what you were using as an illustration there with like Han saying, boring conversation anyway, and some of that sarcastic humor with that opening sequence with Poe and General Hugs.
I love it. I think it's fantastic.
I love it. I thought it was hilarious.
Too. I think it's so funny.
But I can understand where if you're going for, and this is the big debate now after Andor, if you gravitate as you've aged and you're a 30-year-old guy or a 35-year-old or 40-year-old person watching these things, that stuff's maybe not what you're hoping to see. You're hoping to see the Andor stuff. So that conflict is there. But I remember sitting next to Nate and Sam in the theater watching The Last Jedi, and they're cracking up at in that opening. And I think that's going to be critical to keeping it light. I think that's one piece that Andor never really landed humor well in the entire series. But it wasn't built for 12-year-olds. It was built for guys like us and people like us.
Yeah, no, it's true. And it, again, every time spending too much time on the internet, I hear we're exposed to the things that people think are dumb or the things that
way too much time on it.
Yeah. But then I'll go and watch that episode with my son, and I'll be like, "What did you think of that?" And he'll be like, "Oh, that was awesome." And I'm like, "Okay, so it worked. It worked for the right person."
Mission accomplished.
Yeah. So one more question before we take our break. What do you hope the future generations will take from Star Wars, or maybe bring to Star Wars as we go? As we talked about Tatooine grandsons, what are they going to be talking about when Star Wars is still around in 20 plus years?
That's a great question. I'm concerned that they won't, but I hope that there really is an appreciation and almost to an extent of a reverence for the original trilogy. 20, 25 years from now, it's not some 75-year-old movie that my grandpa watched and he made his kids watch. I'm hoping that they understand the way that story is there. I love how Andor, Rogue One, and then A New Hope changes the way that you watch A New Hope, and then it changes the way you view the Empire going forward and watching that trilogy. So I love that. I do, as much as I'm not a fan of the idea of CGI original trilogy characters, or even, I'm not even sure I want a ton of stories in live action being retold in that era. I do hope that they continue to tell stories in that era. I think that they need to. I would love to see Lucasfilm open up, loosen the reins a little bit for writers to write within that era more. I don't feel like they're given much latitude to do that. And maybe even I've often said that, after you go from Clone Wars, Rebels, Bad Batch, I think the next era is original trilogy era. I would love to do an animated story of stuff happening between A New Hope and Empire Return of the Jedi with the original characters, but make it animated, get great voiceover actors in there with it, and expand that story so that those generate. I just want this mythology. That's my hope for future generations. I want this mythology. I want there to be opportunities for parents to sit with their children and talk about right and wrong and good and evil from the perspective of telling a kid's story, because that's what they did for hundreds of years using other myths and other fairy tales. And this is our mythology now.
Yep. Yeah. 100%. Oh, that's so cool. Well, we're gonna take a quick break, and when we come back, we want you to stick around, David. We're gonna hit the news in our own special way, the way we've been doing it lately, and you're gonna have an opportunity to earn some points and win our little game here. So we're gonna take a quick break, and we'll be back in just a minute with more ATG Live.
Producer Kelsey, clearly the most powerful being in the galaxy, selects this week's most overhyped Star Wars news from our website and forces a panel of organic life forms to argue about it. Loudly. For points. That she gives out. However she wants. This makes no sense to me at all. This week's special guest will also join the chaos, pretending that their opinions matter, while Kelsey quietly calculates who lives, who dies, and who gets muted. And at the end, the so-called winner gets 60 seconds of uninterrupted airtime, because that's what this show needs. More talking. So, hold on to your motivator and brace for impact. This is Around the Galaxy. Do I have to say it? Do I really? Roger, Roger.
Well,
it's so good to see Clanker back.
Miss Clanker.
Clanker is
laughing that whole time. That was brilliant.
I gotta say, Pete.
Yeah.
Give him 60 seconds of uninterrupted
Pete,
time.
No. I'm stunned because I've worked with some pretty creative people at ESPN, and that was the best fucking thing I've ever seen. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Where's my call, ESPN?
Mission accomplished.
Oh
That's
my
right.
God,
Where's
so
Pete's in me,
good.
huh? You have to send that in me to Pete to hang on to.
Someone fucking hire this dude. Creative.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Yes, Clanker has been
really Clanker is just him channeling all the things that he wants to say that he's not allowed to.
Yep.
100%. It's funny when I used to use Clanker to do the reviews. People would review our website or our show, and I would have him read them and just say the things that I was thinking. This person needs to get out more and things like that. So. But I miss Clanker, so we're going to keep him around and keep him doing
the proud return
the
of
intros.
Clanker.
Yes. So, Kelsey, it's on you, sister. What do we got going on this week?
Yeah, I know. I had to give you your props.
I
Like,
appreciate
that.
that.
Was
Do I start with
beautiful.
extra points or something? Do I?
You should.
You know what? Like, wow! You're rigging the system already before we start. Ooh, all right. Well, here we go. All right. So Mark Hamill recently said he's grateful for his time as Luke Skywalker, but he believes Star Wars should now be the focus on the future of the characters. Do you agree that it's time to move on to the legacy of the characters entirely, or is this still in value with keeping them involved in some way? How do you see this shift impacting from the franchise's connection with the longtime fans? Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. Is it time to move away from Luke Skywalker? You know, Dave was just saying something
I'm
about it
gonna
before.
go ahead and blame you for writing the
Yeah, that was I heard that.
It's 17 lines on the
no. Like he
valuable
literally
lesson.
no, hold on. I just need to like preface this with like he was like, I'm gonna write these for you this week, and then
he's channeling his inner George Lucas.
Like, oh my god, there's like 8 billion paragraphs. My
you
god,
can write this stuff, but you can't read it.
That's right.
Yeah, no, that was terrible. I'm so sorry, everyone. Like round one, we're gonna reset on round 2.
Points taken away from.
Yeah, now I'm back down to 0 points. I
He's
get it.
starting at a negative 50.
You know, he started so high, and now he's gone.
Wiped out all that
negative
love
50
right away.
right here.
All right. Well, is it time to move on from Luke Skywalker?
Yeah, go ahead, Pete. Like, sink into this.
Okay, so Dave was just saying that we want to keep those characters around, and I agree. What I think it's time to move away from is CG versions of these guys. If we're going to do a live action Luke show up, then recast him. We saw Bail Organa work as a recast. Nobody mentioned that Brea Organa was recast in the Kenobi show. There's enough good actors out there who can channel the character of Luke Skywalker, and it's always going to live with the actor, and the actor's going to have that sort of first impression. That's, I think, part of the challenge with Solo. We talked about it a couple weeks ago. We're not going to get as mad about it, but I think Alden Ehrenreich did his best not to do a Harrison Ford impression, but he tried to channel the essence of Solo. So I think I don't want to move away from these characters, but I don't want to see any more CG characters. Just get somebody else to play them.
What are your thoughts, David?
As I mentioned at the end of the last segment, I feel like I would say this, that I do not want to see them recast in this time frame, like where we're at in real time right now. I don't think that the fandom is ready for the recasting. This comment by Mark Hamill stirred up so much silliness in the Star Wars fandom, which that's not unusual. But let Lucasfilm open up, get to a Charles Soule, get to an Adam Christopher again, get to a Claudia Gray, get to some of these people and let them start telling stories in this era, and then do for the original trilogy what the Clone Wars TV series did for the prequels, and that is write an entire new arc and a new story and change the way we view everything that happens in the original trilogy through an animated series. You could also bring in characters like Omega. Did I say Omega? I meant Omega.
It's the only way to say it.
Bring in Omega from it, and that ties to the Bad Batch to bring in animated people. You could bring in a Hera again. You can bring in a Zeb. Some of these Mandoverse live action characters revisiting in this. I think that that's the model for keeping these characters alive for the foreseeable future.
What about you, Nick?
I think that, and I've said this many, many times, and I got really excited when David started talking about it, because he's about to say the thing that I keep saying. I want some of the original trilogy stories animated in the style of the Clone Wars. So I want animated Han, Luke, Leia adventures in the style of the Clone Wars. Like, I think that would be phenomenal. Bring in these amazing voice actors, Shelby Young, all these other folks who have done all these roles for so long. So I think that would be great. Here's what I'll say about Luke Skywalker and what Mark Hamill said. Mark Hamill is a very smart guy, and I love that every time I'm, randomly scrolling TikTok or Instagram and I see a clip of him on Colbert or on somewhere else having a conversation, like I'm just reminded of like what a great guy he is, how funny he is, how smart he is. I think he recognizes, he doesn't want to be Willie Mays out in the outfield running around in a circle, not able to catch the ball.
Yeah.
But I also think he has the stature and he should get the opportunity to let somebody bring him in, let Dave bring him in and go, is there anything you'd like to do or help with? Like give him that kind of elder statesman role to be able to, he's always going to be an ambassador for Star Wars, but he might want to get creative behind the scenes in helping produce an animated something. Like give him the opportunity to be involved in some other way, maybe as a way just to stay connected without it having to be about Luke Skywalker. That's what I'd love to see with Mark Hamill in particular.
That's
Love
great.
that.
And one of the things I'm happy about, I know it's sort of unrelated, but I'll just throw it out there, is it took Mark Hamill and Harrison Ford a while to embrace that they were who they were. Carrie Fisher always had it, but I'm glad to see that Daisy Ridley is like, yeah, I'm going to be Rey. And if you want to make a good Rey movie, I'll come back and do it sooner than later. I don't want to see her when she's, going to break a hip trying to run through the forest.
I think that's what John Boyega is struggling with still.
Yes.
Agreed.
Yeah.
All right. Next question. So Star Wars Beyond Victory brings back pod racing in a mixed reality format, but many fans are disappointed because that is a top-down playlist or playset experience versus a fully immersive pod race. If you had the right gear, would you buy it? Pete.
Yeah, I am so disappointed that it's not a pod race. When I heard about this thing, I was like, cool, I'm going to put on the VR goggles and I'm going to be in a pod race and I'm going to lose my mind and I'm probably going to throw up. But I was really excited about that until I started reading some of the reviews and things. But and it's more like a play set. Like I can't get that around my head. It's like sort of augmented reality on this sort of thing. To quote Chris Ryons, gimme, though, I would play it in a heartbeat. I think, David, you and I both bought the Quest because of the Vader series that came out. And so, yeah I'm going to probably buy it and play it. And so, yeah, I'm a sucker, but that's okay. But I'm so disappointed that it's not being in a pod. I mean, that's what you need if you're going to be VR.
Pete, when you said like gimme, I thought ABBA and not like Chris. So I'm like, what are you doing there? I was like, oh, A Man After Midnight? Okay. Like, you know what? But I'll give you 100 more points for that. Nick, what's your thoughts?
So I don't still fully understand exactly what this whole thing even is. I, kind of see it. But what it reminds me of, and if we're getting to the heart of the question of if I have the gear, would I buy it? There was the lightsaber game that came out a few years ago that had like the lightsaber with the little light up thing at the end of it. Yeah. It was like the Wii, but just for like this one lightsaber thing.
God, that's a long time ago.
Yeah, felt pretty limited for what it costs and the mileage I'm probably going to get out of it. It doesn't seem like it's my, jam. My jam at this point is playing the Star Wars season of Fortnite that's about to run out on Saturday. But there's been news that they're adding all the Unreal Engine controls permanently in the game for the Star Wars bit. So somebody who's smarter than I am can go in and actually create some Star Wars creator games that will have the look, the weapons, the feel, which right now, while everybody's also still trying to campaign for a Battlefront 3, is a way to kind of bridge that gap. So for me, if the heart of the question is, do you have the equipment? Would you buy this? Not this one. I'd wait for a PlayStation 5, a Battlefront 3, and some other ways to play Star Wars in Fortnite.
Fair enough. You have any thoughts, David?
Yeah, I've got the equipment. I probably won't buy it.
Okay.
When the original in '99, when the original Pod Racer game came out, I spent way too much time playing that game, and I knew every course. I knew the nuances. I knew the tricks. Man, that was my thing. And when this was talked about, pod racing in VR, it's not hard to figure out what the world is asking for when they hear that. They want it to be like you're in the cockpit racing one of these things. And as soon as I found out it was more of this weird tabletop type thing, I'm like, I mean, I can grab my iPhone and play games on my phone just the same way.
Yeah.
So I have no interest in it whatsoever. Yeah, that's sort of where I'm at.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. Well,
I'm at minus 100.
That's because you screwed up the writing on this.
Yeah, way to go,
you were garbage tonight. I'm just gonna tell you. Like I just
whenever you made that intro video,
yeah,
you were
no, like,
amazing.
I know.
I've been like, very upset with you because like you wrote really shitty questions for me, and like I've been very frustrated with you for tonight.
right.
So I'm like,
She's gonna add another minus 100 just for thinking about it.
No, like I'm gonna bury this.
Thanks
dude.
for bringing it up again, Pete.
He's buried
This is me
for tonight.
about Solo last week.
yeah,
Everybody
like,
gets
I
their
mean,
turn in
like
the
we
best
have
there.
like a couple more questions, but like I'm like we're at 5 minutes, and like I don't even know that I want to do them with Pete. No, you know what? It's fine. We're gonna do one more. We're gonna do one more, and then we're gonna go to break. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Kick Pete off. I love it.
All right. So a new report says Dave Filoni and Carrie Beck are the top contenders to take over Lucasfilm once Kathleen Kennedy steps down, possibly by the end of the year. Is this leadership duo what Star Wars needs right now, or should Disney be looking outside the company? I'm going to throw this to you, David, since you're on the board right now.
Yeah, I absolutely love the idea of Dave Filoni and Carrie Beck working together, because anytime that they've worked directly together on anything, it's been gold, right? So I do think Dave Filoni loves this franchise. Carrie Beck loved this franchise. This is actually, to me, a return to Star Wars not being corporate anymore. If you have Dave and Carrie leading the helm together, I think the two of them are going to play off of each other. I think that they respect each other so much that they're willing to somebody needs to be there to tell Dave, no, this doesn't make sense. And Dave needs to be there to say, no, let's go crazy and go do something weird where we go to this completely new galaxy and we bring in crazy characters and all this other stuff. So the two of them working together and starting to go, as long as they also take the Andor model, which story first, Star Wars second, if they do that and learn from the success of Andor, I think this is brilliant. I can't wait to see what happens.
What are your thoughts, Nick?
So I've been back and forth on this question. Of course, we've talked about it over the years on this show because it's been rumored for 100 years now that Kathy Kennedy's either fired, retired, one of the 3 or 4 other things. Until it happens, it's not happened yet. So Kathy Kennedy's going to keep doing what she's doing. She's literally, populated my childhood with all the amazing things that I've grown up with and loved. So when we get there, I don't know who the right person is. So the answer to my question is I don't know if it's Beck and Filoni. I do really like the idea of a couple of people heading this up together, like Dave talks about. Let's get a yin and a yang going on. Let's get a little bit of both sides of this brain.
It's George and Marsha Lucas.
That's it. And that's a great example. George and Marsha Lucas. Let's get the heart and the head both working together to make this happen, because you need both of those things to be in Star Wars, and to find that one thing in one person is really hard to do. So if you have the ability to put two people in place, Favreau spent a lot of time in his career and energy at this point on Star Wars stuff. And I don't know if that's where he wants to spend the rest of his time, but he's another X factor that's out there that I think contributes some really value. So brings a lot of value to Star Wars. So some combination of deep lore, love of the franchise. It kind of goes back to what Pete talked about years ago with J.J. Abrams versus Rian Johnson. Rian Johnson loves Star Wars. J.J. Abrams loves to make a Star Wars movie. Find this ability to say, where is the heart and where's the other half, the head, that's going to make it successful and get it in the right place.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? Like, Nick, that was beautiful. I think our captain has to take us home, though. Pete, you want to just wrap this up for us?
Sure. Yeah, might as well. No, here's my issue, and this might be a hot take, but I don't think Filoni should be at the top. I think he should be running story. The guy gets story, but there's a big difference between being a great storyteller and running a business. Yeah.
I just thought she shut you up is all that happened. She's like, screw this guy.
No, I just mute. Like, oh no,
Sorry, Pete, go ahead.
abort mission.
No, I look, I love Filoni's storytelling style, but just like Filoni's still having trouble getting television or live action right, he gets the stories right for animation. He knows how to tell a good 22-minute story as part of a 7-year cycle, and that's great. I don't know that he's right for the top. Carrie Beck might be better, but I think personally, I think they need to look outside. I think they need to look at somebody like the women who've been running Sony and who've been running Max and running those areas, who are building things like the Penguin or Kelsey could probably run it.
Yeah, no, it's me. It's
you. People who are looking at sort of that multitude of the way you can tell stories and you can mix things up. So I love Filoni. I don't want him to ever go anywhere, and I want him to be driving the stories, but I don't know that he's the right guy to head the studio. So that's my take.
All right, well, that's fair. I mean, I feel like I know I roasted you all night, but like you had the most eloquent point on like what we need to drive home. So here's your platform tonight.
Whoa.
Well, I get it. Really?
Yeah, no, I'm gonna reverse your like 8,000 minus points. So
that Clanker sympathy video is working for you.
Yeah, no, it is.
Whose line is it anyway? The points don't matter, and you know that kind of thing, right?
No,
right,
well, he bullied me into sympathy, I guess.
The most genuine kind.
Yeah, I mean, really, that's the best guy. Well, listen, I think Star Wars right now, we say it all the time. It's a really unique time, but we're not getting as much as we were a couple of years ago, and I think that's good. I feel like the quality of what we're going to be getting over the next 12 to 18 months is going to be something special. I feel like the Maul Shadow Lord show is going to be. I've really come around on that. I'm really excited about where that's going to go. Visions is coming, and then Grogu and the Mandalorian. So we're on the cusp of our next major motion picture, and I it's a topic for another night, but the pressure that's going to be on that movie to not fail, and I'm not even saying to be successful, but to not fail is going to be huge. So, but it's still a great time to be a Star Wars fan. And to that person who posted on Twitter, is this the time when people stop talking about Star Wars? Absolutely not. Join us every Thursday night because we got something to talk about for sure. And then check out David Jesse and Tatooine Sons every Tuesday on the podcast because they got something to talk about. So there's it's still a great time to be a Star Wars fan. I wouldn't trade it for the world. So I guess that's it then for this week, right? We did it. We did another week. We got it. We survived. Kelsey almost killed me, but
what? Come on, man.
But so David, let us know, where can people find you in the show and keep up with your posts and whatnot.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. You can go anywhere if you know how to spell Tatooine, which if you're watching a Star Wars live stream on Thursday night, you probably know how to spell Tatooine. With that, and then SONS, not SUNS. If you search that, you'll find us. And what an awesome thing. I think I've got a question for you guys to do somewhere down the road. Which franchise has the bigger weight on their next release, DC or Star Wars? That would be an interesting conversation.
Wow, that is.
And I can't wait. Yep,
be good.
I have lots of thoughts on that one, so let's do it.
Let's do it. Well, that's great. Nick, who do we have coming on the show next week?
Next week, we are excited to welcome back.
I love when I asked Nick that. He's not quite ready. It's like,
I was ready. Did I freeze? Because I was 100% ready.
Maybe it was an Alabama internet.
Yeah, must have been an internet thing. I'm very excited that we are welcoming back next week our friend Mr. Jim Fagan from the Yub Nub podcast. Jim, Tim, and Greg are three of our favorite funny late night TV writer friends who all love Star Wars and host their own Star Wars podcast. Jim was on with us a couple months back, and he's going to come back again. He's excited about the Around the Galaxy format, and we've got some new stuff to talk about with him. So next week, Jim Fagan from the Yub Nub podcast.
That is awesome. And make sure to check out the Road to Rebellion, which is still in our podcast stream and will be forever. And we're also starting to put these episodes of ATGLive into the podcast stream. So if you missed us live, or if you just love this so much and you want to listen to it on your way to work someday next week, well, make sure to check us out there. And that's where we are. So, Kelsey, thank you so much. David, thank you.
Thank you, guys. It was awesome being on.
And Nick, may the force be with you.
Always.
Just one more round, friend, then homeward bound, friend. Don't forget me in your dreams. Just one more song, friend, and then so long, friend. The nights get shorter, it seems. Just one more rhyme, friend. Yes, it's a crime, friend. But you know time, friend. Time can fly. So it's good night, friend. Good night, but not goodbye.